Hey, I'm Mike and this is Porty's Chop Shop. This video included a lot of moving things around, and so there's a little bit of a time lapse in the beginning here. The idea was basically to mount the drivetrain, so the engine, transmission, and as much of the drive shaft as I could in preparation for finally setting up the rear subframe and differential. The drivetrain, the engine, and transmission need to be in place so that I can get the correct drive shaft length and then get the correct angle set on the rear differential. So I started with the transmission because that had the most limited space. So let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, this is the modified Datsun transmission mount. So all I did was add this 1 1/4 inch spacer and drill the holes to accept a 240SX factory transmission mount. I did have to bore out these holes. I just bored those out a tiny bit, and then this will just work with the 240SX transmission mount on the Datsun transmission crossmember. So that's it. Here it is, the final product. This is the modified Datsun 620 transmission crossmember with the 240SX transmission mount bolted onto it. And so I'll show one final shot when it's all installed. Alright, there it is installed in the factory location, just using the factory transmission crossmember locations and then the new 240SX isolator. So that's it, all installed, torqued down. Just gotta mount the engine now. I'm salvaging the old suspension mounts, the old rear upper shock mounts that I built for the QA1 and airbag suspension setup that I had. I'm going to salvage those for engine mounts, retaining just basically this part here. Get rid of that. And then I did a plate with a slotted hole in it, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, here's a quick close-up shot of the engine mount installed in the truck. It's just tacked in place for now, as well as all the clearances underneath the truck, including the steering rack to engine clearance, the ground clearance, and just showing that the oil pan and trans and everything are above the cross member. Also, a little bit of firewall clearance that I do have, and then the last thing is just the angle that my engine sits at, and this is what I matched up the drive line to. So there you go. Okay, very exciting. The engine is sitting and the transmission are sitting completely on their own mounts inside the truck. So I also forgot to mention that I centered it, obviously, on the crank. So I know this isn't the rear end, but doing this allows me to do all kinds of permanent mounting on things now that I know that everything clears. It clears the steering rack that I had modified. It clears the brake setup, which is the 240SX brake setup that bolts onto the Datsun 620 stuff. It allows me to mess with the shifter placement, which is set back. The one thing that I've been trying to get to forever is mounting the drive shaft and the rear subframe, which I was actually able to get to today. Alright, I whipped through this carrier bearing support bracket really fast, so I didn't take any video, so I'll just show what it is. It's a bracket that holds the carrier support bearing like this. Bolts through right here, retaining the slotted adjustment. And mounts to the truck like this. And I added those, I added those slotted holes so it has some front to back adjustment too. And I just did those slotted holes the same way I did the engine mounts. So there you go. Put that on. Angle is exactly the back of the engine angle. And now I can mock up my rear differential and measure to get my drive shaft extended. Okay, everything's out of the way now, so the next step will be mounting that rear subframe. So keep an eye out for that video, and as always, thanks for watching. And remember, always clean up your shop when you're done working.